here to talk about The Night Shift by Alex Finlay. Finlay? I don't know. How did I get here? I asked myself that many times while reading this book. Look, I gotta stop falling for library displays, is really where we're at. This book was on a library display, and I'd heard and seen the name Alex Finlay like a number of times, various like places where people talk about books, I guess. I recognized the name, and I picked up the book and I read the flap. And for context, I was a teenager in the 90s in Texas, and at that time there was a very famous murder case called the Yogurt Shop Murders, where 4 young ladies who worked at a yogurt shop in Austin, Texas, were murdered at the end of the night, basically, as the shop was closing. That case has never, I think, officially been solved, although some people say they more or less know who did it. They just can't really catch them on it, or I don't know. I don't remember the specifics, but when I read the premise of this book, it reminded me of that, and I was like, oh, that could be interesting. The premise of this book is that on New Year's Eve in 1999, at a Blockbuster Video, the end of the night, somebody came and killed all but one of the people working at the Blockbuster. There were 4 girls and a guy who was the manager. The guy was not much older than the girls. The girls were all high schoolers. One of the girls survived. 15 years later, well, a little more than 15 years, because it's 2015. I want to say April, maybe? I don't know. Somebody murders, again, in the same way, a bunch of girls working at an ice cream shop, and therefore kind of lights a fire under the cold case of the Blockbuster murders. They, again, think they know who did it. That guy has managed to, like, escape the country. And, yeah, so, you know, they're like, oh, we're gonna solve this case and possibly put a lid on the Blockbuster case. Okay, so it's a good premise. But then I started reading the book, and it's told from multiple points of view. One of the points of view is the point of view of Ella, who was the girl who survived the 1999 Blockbuster murders. She is now obviously older and a therapist, but we'll talk about it. And then Sarah Keller, I want to say her name is. I don't know. She is an FBI agent who is 8 months pregnant and probably has no business being in the field right now, but she's called in for this case for whatever reason. And then Chris Whitaker, well, he goes by Chris Ford. Okay. He's a public defender, but he's also the younger brother of the guy they think committed the murders. Alright. So, yeah. Here was my problem. Well, I had a lot of them, but here's a chief problem that I had with this book. The characters are all paper thin, like you could just punch a fist through them. They had no depth. They weren't interesting because they were all just so basic, cliche. Ella, of course, is a therapist now, but she also still goes out and has this like kind of pseudo death wish of going out and you know, picking up strange men in bars and spending the night with them or whatever. Even though she's got a perfectly good fiance, Brad, who's boring, unfortunately, I guess. Stability is boring, clearly. But also, Ella comes from a really rich family, as it turns out, and she's just rebelling against, you know, being wealthy, or something. I don't know. But then there's also the girl who survives the ice cream store. So Ella, of course, is called in to talk to her as a therapist and as somebody who shares that whole final girl thing. And Jessie is, of course, a foster kid and edgy and always getting into trouble and rebellious in that way. And Chris is just a sad sack who grew up in a difficult home, and then after his brother left and everything, he ended up in foster care and changed his name, but he's still committed to justice, so he's a public defender, and he's got this rich, girlfriend, something, but like she's a real lawyer, like part of a big firm or mergers and acquisitions and blah blah blah. And then Keller, pregnant FBI agent, still a go-getter, badass, Clarice Starling type, I guess. I don't know. Were none of them that interesting, and in some cases so like borderline offensive to me, just the way they were written as just like so cardboard, so yeah, I don't know. I wasn't impressed with the characterizations or the dialogue. And I think by 50 pages in, maybe even earlier, I knew who did it. Like, I was like, well, it's obviously this guy. And then there are these... So, Chris's brother... Vincent? I can't remember. Start with a V. He left, right? He got sprung on, like, bond or whatever when he was first, like, being considered for the murders of the Blockbuster stuff. And he skipped town, and he actually has been seen all over the world. Well, that's because really, he's a YouTuber, and he doesn't show his face on his YouTube channel, but he's like a travel YouTuber, an adventure YouTuber. And so the book has these transcripts of YouTube videos because Chris watches this YouTuber because he knows it's his brother. He like recognizes the voice or whatever. And like the transcripts are so bad, and like if read it, they're like 2 or 3 pages. I'm like, are these really short videos? Because like the transcripts are only 2 or 3 pages long usually. And so I'm like, these must be insanely short. Are these YouTube shorts? What are these? Like, it's so dumb. It adds really nothing to the story. And it's like no one really believes that the guy they say did it, because this wouldn't be much of a book if that were true. I mean, this isn't like a manhunt book where everybody's out looking for this one guy. They just all think this one guy did it. So it's just not good. None of it's good. And I ended up kind of skimming the middle, chunk of the book and reading the last 50 or so pages. So I read it, I got to almost about 50%, and then I was like, I can't take any more of these characters. They're so poorly done. So then I was like kind of skim, and then like some people said, oh, just read like the last 50 or so pages. So that's what I did. And the person I thought did it. If there had been some kind of twist or something, but no. And the one character I liked died. He's like the only one I actually like had any vague interest in, even though again he was very, I don't know. They're all just non-entities. And then it was, and I mean even to the point where like the I guess this is a mild spoiler, but the FBI agent, when she has her kids, she's got twins, she gives each of them the middle name of the guy who died. And then like her husband too is just weird. I know, I think he's supposed to be some kind of like super supportive husband, type, supporting his FBI agent wife's career or something, but he just came off as like, I don't know, it came off as weird. Uh, this book was not well written. So yeah, overall, I mean, I gave it 2 stars. And, it might be more like 1.5. I'm not sure. I gave it 2. Like, I was hoping that it would surprise me or do something interesting with the story or something. But the story itself wasn't very good. The character, like, we're jumping around, the 3 different points of view. None of them were that interesting. Very colorless. And in some cases, like I said, just so cliche, the rebel girl who's shoplifting or, whatever. It was not a good book. I don't think I'd read anything else by this author because it's just not for me. I mean, some people, look, my standard, everybody's got different standards. And I'm not saying your standards are lower. I'm saying they're different. If this is your thing, then cool, go for it. My standards and priorities when reading a book are maybe just different from yours if this is something you like. But like, I didn't enjoy, I think, any aspect of it except, like, the premise sounded really cool, but no, at the end of the day, it was not a good book. So now I'm rereading the Iliad. Well, I'm reading a newer translation of the Iliad. I've read it a lot in high school and college, but we'll talk about it when I finish this version of it. But in any case, if you've read The Night Shift or other books by Alex Finlay, let me know your thoughts. Am I just being way too nitpicky? Maybe. But like, for me, this was not it. So, oh well, until next time, take care.